There's no pressure on me. So as all of us know, there are multiple cogent perspectives on the subject of trans phenomenon among minors. Moral values, medical ethics, scientific evaluations, clinical experience of various professionals, sociologic, political, anthropologic concerns, and parent values, which is the topic of my talk today. And I guess what I'm going to try to be doing is to illuminate what is intuitive and see if I can make this very clear. So all families are unique, yet the uniqueness of patients and the families shape causal influences, treatment plans, and outcomes, all of which are difficult to articulate for all of us. It's an illusion to think that trans identities have a common etiology, one effective treatment, or consistent outcome. Shared adversities tend to create similar initial reactions, including the search for others in comparable circumstances, while our teen patients invariably seek other trans-identified peers. Only some parents seek to meet other parents, which may or may not be helpful to them. So I want to announce my bias. I should say my biases. I feel parents' fearful despair, their hope for resolution, and their belief that trans identity limits their offspring's developmental potential. A persistent trans identity changes current and future interpersonal relationships and maintains the individual's subjective burdens, I believe, at every stage of adult life. Conversations with parents are much easier for clinicians than with their minor child. Parents just need to be given the opportunity to speak, to share their views. Mental health professionals have to help their minor patients to talk, even very intelligent patients, because they lack the deep understanding of themselves, and of course they lack a deep understanding of others. They don't have sufficient vocabularies for psychological phenomenon, and they of course have limited life experiences with which to judge their own experiences. So my take-home message to all of you today is that the vast majority of parents that I've worked with over 50 years profoundly love their child. They are not the child's enemy. That adolescents perceive parents as the enemy reflects their limited, immature understanding. So as far as I can see, most of the parents that I have seen have never anticipated this adolescent outcome. They experience their teen's announcement as a danger that creates a pervasive anxiety and that causes them to have periodic meltdowns when they are alone with their spouse and less often with their minor child. This process also leads to wondering if I caused or did my spouse cause this problem. While this crisis certainly includes grief, I think of it as a form of betrayal. Any source of betrayal creates persistent waves of disbelief, fear, sadness, hostility, defiance, uncertainty, guilt, vengeance, and resolve. These separate affects create a new pervasive sense of what is inexpertly summarized as anxiety. It's not simply anxiety, it's all those other feeling states that come in waves and are just interpreted as tension or anxiety. But when you look closely at it, it's very specific other feelings. This array of feelings is accompanied by changes in sleep, eating, sexual interest, and new instances of headaches, diarrhea, and increased alcohol or marijuana intake. The parental mind is obsessed, preoccupied with what should be done. Parental social withdrawal often occurs as this crisis plays out. Now, I think many of you know that the Chinese write the word for crisis by combining two pictograms, one danger and the other opportunity. Opportunity is what the mental health professional is called upon to create. So betrayal has been a bit of obsession of mine, and I've written about it in one of my books, chapter 6. So the question is, what are the sources of betrayal? I think there are at least 5. First, fate. However one thinks about fate, God, spiritual universe, luck, but why, oh why is this happening to me and to us is what is going through the mind of the parent. The second source of betrayal is the adolescent, him or herself. And this betrayal causes within the family personal, marital, and extended family dysfunction often. The third source of betrayal is the rapidly affirmative medical profession, because many parents, as you know, are treated with cool indifference, subtle hostility, and are labeled as transphobic. Some parents, of course, dismiss these medical concepts knowing that they're ridiculous, right? Others, enraged, consider reporting them to a licensing board, see, while others dive deeply into the subject as a result and become far more expert in a short period of time than the mental health professionals have treated them with such hostility. The fourth source of the betrayal is the sibling, usually the younger sibling, who cannot grasp what the parents are concerned about. Mom, Dad, it's normal to be trans, the parents are told. And fifth force of betrayal is hard to put one's finger on. It's society that has embraced diversity, which many, many parents have long supported until they realized that the difference between trans in the world and trans in my family. So society may focus on many institutions and many news reports on an ongoing daily basis. So married parents come in two forms, as far as I can see, the married and the divorced. Or I guess the never married. Mothers on the married usually have the more painful affective waves that I described and seek personal medication or psychotherapy themselves. They seem to feel more guilt and suffer from what did I do wrong. The role of the mental health professional is to stabilize both of the parents. They often need stabilization in the crisis phase of this phenomenon, right? I occasionally see parents who accept and support the child's transition. It's unusual. It usually is the mother with an angry, alienated, absent from the evaluation father. Parental meltdowns are now far better when the crisis is occurring. It's far better to have these meltdowns, these internal crises, these interpersonal crises than it is after you support your child and there's a disastrous outcome. Then the crisis is a whole different matter, and then guilt becomes multiplied by 10. But among the divorced, I often see the agony that I wish I didn't have to see. Because I see these in legal cases in courtrooms, and I learn about children and teens whose identity transition and medication treatments result in disputes over custody. and who has medical decision-making. See, the disagreement heightens and prolongs the ex-spouse's hatred of the other. One parent gets excluded by the minor and sometimes by the court. Witnessing their unresolvable woes helps me, and I think other mental health professionals, to work to preserve the marital bond and parent-child relationships among intact families. It just takes one experience with one of these times of hatred where, I mean, the trouble with divorce is a tendency to hate anyway, but when you have a dispute over your child's gender custody and so forth, I think people never get over that. So there are 5 characteristics that I want to review for you about adolescents. They have certainty. Maturation cures certainty. They have passionate intensity. Maturation cures this too. Thankfully, they're very changeable, and that also is cured with time and maturation, if maturation is able to occur with time. They have dependence on peer relationships for their self-worth. Maturation makes this less desperate. All of us are still looking to our status with our peers, but no one at no phase in life like the current cell phone dependent adolescent, right? And the 5th characteristic of adolescence is that they have private discovery of erotic, meaning internal ideas, images, and sexual preoccupations. The details are off limit to parents and often to uneasy mental health professionals. But parents may be told, Mom, I'm bisexual, Dad, I'm gay, or the one I hear about by the youngest adolescents, I'm asexual. Speaking about changeability. So I've been interested all my life in what is mental health, and I've never heard a better definition than Sigmund Freud's The Ability to Love and to Work. When I read the DSM-5 definition of mental illness, it's a paragraph long and it doesn't make any sense. So I want to talk about the meaning of psychopathology. Major psychopathology exists in the world. The psychotic spectrum disorders, pervasive or recurrent depressive conditions, one of which is the bipolar phenomenon. There are congenital developmental disorders we call autism today, anorexia to overeating, so we can call that eating disorders, substance abuse, which can kill a person easily, and criminality, which we rarely talk about in here. When accurately diagnosed, any of these psychopathologies have a challenging chronicity, and that's a great sadness because these things are not cured by people like me. And then there are the minor psychopathologies, what Freud called the psychopathologies of everyday life, and that includes anxiety states, reactive depressions, substance dependence, attention deficit disorder, OCD. These are much more compatible with finding and sustaining love and work, those kind of successes in life. But these too can also limit greatly the quality of a person's life. So to love and to work in relationship to a trans identity is really why we're gathered here this morning. Love has 2 faces. I want to be able to feel love for another person in my life, and I want another person to feel love and treat me with love in my life. I call that 2 faces of love. So the goal is to find, sustain, and grow a deeper relationship with another person over time, to behave in ways to increase the depth of the partner's commitment to me, to us, right? And to find a partner who has actually the capacity to deepen their love for me over time. Those are the choices that we used to call, that we were trying to work out when we were, quote, dating, right? And when it comes to levels of work, what we want for all of our patients, including our trans youthful patients, is we want them to find a vocation that's commensurate with their education and their capacities. We want them to be able to work full-time or part-time. That includes being a student at a certain age, right? But the ultimate goal is to obtain independence from us, to sustain themselves financially and socially without substance dependence throughout their adult life. Where, you know, we talk about adolescence, but that at best is a 10-year period. That most adolescents have another 60, 70 years to work out love and vocational problems. So parents have a future perspective that they're younger, what the patient doesn't have, or their siblings don't have. The trans minor's ultimate mental health is tied to the future of every member of the family. A medical professional's view is short-term perspective. Gender dysphoria should be treated in this way. Well, either with hormones or psychotherapy or group therapy or send them to Europe. See. Even if psychopathology is noted by the mental health professional, by the evaluator, see, the professional typically does not consider the person's future ability to love or to work, which is what we parents are very concerned about. We're trying to grow and launch a person who can be successful in these two domains of life. Now, siblings, political activists, and researchers have little concept of this, or at least how to measure this. But see, we parents intuitively understand this. It's primarily the parents and occasionally an ethicist or a moralist who has these concerns, although they may not be able to articulate them. You know, I love this word inchoate because for about 12 years, 15 years, I had to look it up every time I heard it. I couldn't remember what it meant. It means it's something I feel, but I can't explain. And the introduction to inchoate was poets. Poets tell us what is inchoate, right? But we're going to tell each other what's inchoate. We can't afford to have these things inchoate, right? We need to be able to say these things to understand them to ourselves and to our children, right? Parents' values have the entire life cycle in mind. The doctors do not have the life cycle in mind. So one of the major things that I've been preaching is that parents' concerns, today's concerns of parents, are soon going to be the young person's concerns. It's just a little premature at 13 to be able to have these concerns. I have encouraged people to have a calm expression of these concerns over time as they come into the parent's mind. Don't panic over your concerns. Share the concerns, right? Their concerns are evidence of clear thinking about the life cycle. That's not transphobia. That's clear thinking. That's grasping the intuitive and putting words on it. Adolescent certainty about their new identity reflects either their naivete, their denial, their suppression, or, and I know this is a word that mental health professionals don't like to use, they're lying. They're either naive, denying, suppressing, or they're simply not telling the truth. They know what's going on to some extent in their soul, in their mind, but they don't want to say. And so I am assured by a patient's worries, it's healthy to have ambivalence. If you had a take-home message from my talk, it's that sentence. It's a sign of mental health to be ambivalent about everything in life, including your love of your life and your vocation. The key is to normalize and respect the rational presence of worry and ambivalence. Come on, we're all human beings. We know life is fraught with all possibilities and dangers, disappointments. So the trans adolescent or young adult with serious psychopathology, that's the topic for the next 10 seconds. Sadly, this is quite common. In the last year, I have been involved with 4 such families. I have seen medical records of minors with inabilities to socially, scholastically, or vocational function who nonetheless have been provided with affirmative care. I have supervised others who were trying to improve the functional impairments of the autistic and those with significant oppositional defiance. We must be clear that social, medical, surgical transformation do not cure these kind of deficiencies, personal deficiencies. A new trans identity is a creative, unconscious solution in an adolescent. Parents need to understand that their adolescents' view of their own fears, social worries, learning problems, family relationship issues, and social status among peers, and hatred of menstruation or spontaneous sexual excitements with erections are viewed through the lens of their current but ever-changing adolescent sensibilities. It's the 12-year-old, it's the 16-year-old thinking about these issues. It's not the 40-year-old thinking about these issues, right? This only means that the young trans person is Y-O-U-N-G. Their sensibilities are immature because they are young, that's all. It's not simply because they're defective, it's they're young. So every trans identity does not know best, does not have a fixed authentic self. That's a ridiculous concept. We're all changing, right? And they can't understand the functional changes that hormones and surgeries bring about. They are just, these things, the authentic self, are just rhetorical concepts that are used to justify affirmative care. Parents are calmed by the idea that their child's new identity can be a hopeful solution to move beyond their painful psychosocial circumstances. The identity provides the adolescent with a false explanation of their long-standing pain. There's an ideal 4-person team that I want to interest you about because I know you intuitively know this, and that is the mother, the father, the child, and the mental health professional. It's a team, folks. The team emerges from the psychiatric evaluation process, which creates a strong, trusting bond between the mental health professional and the patient, the adolescent, and between the mental health professional and the parents. The team is interested in what forces have created the significant unmanageable distress for the minor. And I divide these into 3 great categories: predisposing factors, precipitating factors, and maintaining factors. What can be done to improve the mental health and function of the minor is the question for the mental health professional and the parents and the child. The team has the same question. Strengthening the intrafamilial bonds is one of the purposes of the psychiatric work with the family. So there are 4 goals in working with the parents: to increase their understanding of the predisposing, precipitating, and maintaining factors in the creation of the trans identity, to increase their confidence in discussing these influences with their adolescent, to teach parents how to be helpful, therapeutic, calm expressions of their child's positive features. This is a smart kid, a kind kid, an artistic kid, a skillful kid, athletic kid, right? A calm expression of their worries about the child's future. Emphasis on calm. Sharing of their remembered anxieties from their own adolescence. Kids love to hear what their parents went through at the same time in life, right? And a new ability to listen to their child speak of his internal emotional self. And finally, 4, to improve their abilities to be with their child in a psychologically intimate way. It's the real goal here, how to be with that child so that they can share their subjective self. So in summary, what I have said in 27 minutes, the initial parent crisis of a trans identity creates a family turmoil that is privately considered a sense of betrayal. Parents' love and devotion to their child is usually quite obvious. Their love should be recognized, supported, and occasionally improved upon. Seeking our guidance for the grief and the betrayal represents a mastery of betrayal. They're overcoming the feelings of betrayal to still work for the future of their child. That's mastery, because the betrayal is a really tough thing for human beings to master. Everyone is benefited by strengthening intrafamilial bonds, and parents need a lot of emotional support. They are the therapist's ally and their child's ally. That's all I have to say. Stop applauding. We have 2 minutes and 30 seconds for questions.
Would you like to stand up and say your name?
Hi, I'm Carol Lawrence. I'm a parent with a child in their mid-20s who's medicalised and gone no contact. Now, I've never met or heard of Dr. Stephen Levine until now, and I'm from the UK. But what you've described was the first 6 months to a year of our family relationships, very accurately. And I'm part of parent groups, and in talking to each other, the personal is the political, and the micro is the macro, and what is missing is the data. And by the time our child comes to her senses, if that happens, me and my husband might not be around or able to do with that. So it's a manifesting public health issue. I could say crisis. We don't know how big it is, but it's going to be significant for all of you. And I want to really thank Stella and the innumerable parent helpers and other professionals for bringing everybody together. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kim Holtz. I'm a parent of a trans-identified kid who's now 20. And I'm just curious, because this is also very reflective of our experience. But we had our familial relationships very, very much undermined by a mental health professional that we went to early on. And I feel like our relationship with all of our children has never really recovered from that. And I'm wondering if you can say anything about what we can do to reestablish those bonds that we're all working toward in the shadow of having been actively undermined by a mental health professional or group at a point in the past that we've all moved past, but the scars are still there.
I'm sorry. Are you asking me Could you repeat the essence of what you're asking me?
I'm asking, so as we go through, and the ultimate goal is to preserve the relationship between us as parents and our adult children as we go forward, and we want to, when that relationship has this past that includes an actual active undermining by a mental health professional, how do we work to move
See,
forward with that?
everyone, I accuse everyone, if you can see, I'm pointing my finger at each one of you. Everyone is a meaning maker. Anything that happens, you have an idiosyncratic and sometimes a shared meaning with other people in your family. But when you have this crisis and you have the division in the family of one's a trans and one child is supporting the trans and the other child thinks the trans is crazy. So I think we have to begin by acknowledging that everyone's a meaning maker, and we're interested in everyone's meaning, everyone's current meanings. We don't want to argue with the meanings. We just want to hear what the meanings are, and we want to know what the meanings are. We don't want to tell people, you're wrong. We just want to know how you think about this particular topic, your identity, how you think it's going to work out over time. So, mother, you think it's going to work out over time in this direction, and two other people in the family think it's going to work out in this direction, and one of those people say, oh, Mom, it's going to be fine. We don't have to argue. We just have to know what each person thinks, because time, it will test whose hypothesis is supported and whose hypothesis about how that was going to work out is going to be disbanded. That's it, I'm done.